Welcome back, everybody, to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode. I am your host, Pauly DC, and let's get into another one of these things. In today's episode, I will discuss The Fury of Firestorm, The Nuclear Men, Volume 1. It was titled God Particle, and it was written by Ethan Van Sciver and Gail Simone, which I think is the greatest achievement of this entire book. But all jokes aside, the art was done by Yildiray Sinar and Norm Rapman, and the first 6 issues were released between November 2011 to April of 2012. Just a quick mention about Jason Rusch before we get started. He was only created 7 years prior to the release of this series, with Dr. Martin Stein and Ronnie Raymond being the original two halves that made up Firestorm. But this series really shook things up, especially when it came to Mr. Stein. Issue number 1 starts with a group of mercenaries named Clifford, Gabe, Lauren, and McDrury questioning and then killing a boy and his family in Turkey over some object that some professor is said to have. A rather perturbing scene indeed, but not out of the ordinary for these titles that needed to try and hold a candle to the other more popular ones. Things jump to Walton Mills, USA, where we meet local star QB Ronnie Raymond and teen genius Jason Rusch, who's with his crush, school reporter Tanya. The boys are seen to be definitely not friends, as they're having an argument over their differences, which leads into some dinner chats with their single parents, Ronnie's meek mother and Jason's unwavering one-armed father. You could definitely smell a plotline with these two parental figures meeting a mile away. Back to the Merc Squad, they're seen next at a secret lab where they torture a Dr. Dupin, eliciting some science mumbo-jumbo talk, with the important bits being that Dr. Martin Stein is supposedly dead, but discovered the God Particle. Uh-oh, someone called Michio Kaku. And he has the discovery in 4 magnetic bottles, which in simple terms can tap into something called transmutation. Clifford reports these findings to an unseen female boss that makes the first mention of the Firestorm protocols, as she looks at screen images of already active Firestorm people, which, if found out her company is involved in, it'll be ruined. Now back to Ronnie and Jason. They're about to fight over certain things written in the school paper by Jason toward Ronnie, and things need to be broken up by Tanya and another friend of theirs, Trev. The quartet of mercs then show up at the school to kill some security and the coach, looking for the last of the magnetic capsules that Jason reveals to have been given it to by Dr. Stein. Trev is killed next, forcing Jason to use the device, letting off a huge power surge, transforming him and Ronnie into 2 different versions of Firestorm. They immediately begin to brawl in anger and confusion, while the other mercs see that the power blast turned Lauren into, I'm not exactly sure what, which gets McDrury quoting the Bible, as he does often, because there's got to be someone who does that in a book called God Particle, right? As the fight with Jason and Ronnie intensifies, they careen into the sky explosively in front of Tanya, returning as the terrifying thing called Fury. Undeniably, this was an excellent pilot issue. Big stakes with people losing their lives over it, and a mysterious plot that makes you just want to find out more. This was one of those New 52 series that had me hooked in no time. Issue number 2 begins with Tanya watching Fury set off a nuclear winter just by being around, and then her doing her best impression of the older daughter from the original Poltergeist. Fury then focuses its sights on the mercs, who make the appropriate choice to haul ass, except McDrury tries to shoot at it, losing an arm in the process. What did you think was gonna happen, bro? Glimpses of Ronnie and Jason are seen inside Fury, with talk of gauge bosons making it possible, and there's no quick, simple way to explain what those are, which is what Google is for, and even then, you need to be pretty well versed in particle physics to even understand what it tells you. Fury catches up to the Mercs, but Tanya stops it just in time from making mincemeat out of them, and it decides to fly off with her instead. Clifford calls his boss, now revealed to be a lady called Zither, which are also a class of stringed instruments. And what do those have to do with this lady who's clearly a big fan of Phantom of the Opera? I don't know, and I don't care. Anyhow, she's asked for backup to the Mercs, and she says she'll send in the Hyena Squad right after telling Clifford to blow up Walton Mills High School. Oh boy. Jason gives Ronnie a mini download on why he has one of Dr. Stein's magnetic capsules, saying he entrusted the brightest American teens with the info via private chat rooms. Yeah, I don't know about that one. But then he disappeared. This leads to more fighting between the two boys, but this time they end up reverting back completely to normal, and then discussions are had on what they should do next, with Tanya telling them that she saw Fury's emblem burned into the moon. Oh, so much potential with so little payoff. The new Hyena team is then seen closing in on the trio of teens while their parents are questioned by police due to the school bombing, and with help of an enhancing drug that makes them giggle, which I kinda can't help but giggle at, the boys have to become Firestorms to defend themselves, but thanks to special bullets, Jason is wounded, putting Ronnie in a very difficult situation, only because he has no idea he could wipe the floor with these people in 8 seconds flat. Issue number 3 has Zither at her Z-Tech compound with a female agent called Carver, and the two ladies go to see a grotesque and mutated former husband of Zither named Roger, who tried the Firestorm protocols, but it didn't exactly work. He calls Zither Candace, while she goes on to show him that he destroyed half her body when the experiment failed and also killed a lot of people, but for some reason he's still allowed to go out on missions, with his next one being to find Ronnie and Jason. Those two are now being told by the Hyena team leader woman, who was definitely inspired by the same named character from the Gargoyles cartoon series, that Dr. Stein went rogue and sold the Firestorm protocols to some not-so-friendly nations, thus getting him whacked for that, which Jason cannot believe. He really loses it when Tanya is shot, going on to show a mere fraction of how powerful this character can be. Seriously, even without creative liberties taken by writers, Firestorm could end the world in seconds at full potential. Nothing could stop him. After the Hyena team is done with and the leader woman surrenders, Roger, now going by Helix, arrives to smack the two boys around, garnering a great battle sequence to ensue, and in order to stand a chance, Fury needs to come out. Even this is not enough though, as Helix seems to have military training, so the decision is made to permanently incapacitate him with a decapitation. Holy shit. Our heroes actually made the conscious choice to make the hard call and put down a foe for good? Whoa. Lastly, Clifford is seen getting Lauren to a hospital as she don't look too good, and he's told by Zither to bring in Jason and Ronnie by any means, starting with their families. Issue number 4 kicks off in the fictional country of Karak, where it seems every other person is a terrorist, and the one we meet this time is named Haji Al-Farishta, who has gotten his hands on the Firestorm protocols and is transforming locals to be shown for selling purposes on the black market. After an eye-popping, or I should say eye-melting test is performed, a deal is made to someone named Javid. Ronnie and Jason, now back to normal, tend to the still-alive Tanya, eventually deciding to split up, with Ronnie going to find out where to locate the merc teams that are after them, while Jason tends to Tanya. Al Farishta is seen again on his private jet when a menacing firestorm from Russia called Pozar, which literally means fire in Russian, blasts the plane to bits, only for Al Farishta to show he took the firestorm protocol too. He's defeated without effort though, as Pozar states his process was a knockoff one, and while killing Haji, says he, Mikhail Arkadin, and Dr. Martin Stein invented the Firestorm protocols. Interesting retooled character here, since originally he was a Chernobyl scientist who came into conflict with Firestorm after gaining powers from that nuclear disaster. Ronnie is seen arriving at a location he was led to, where a team of mercs wait for him, only to realize they've been set up shortly after opening fire on him. Zither sprays the mercs down with bullets in order to appear as a friend to Ronnie, offering him assistance and where to find his mom. Guy, just take the woman hostage and then force her to tell you. How could you trust her? Jason has gotten Tanya to hospital where he's told she has a very serious brain injury, so he showcases just how amazing the new powers he possesses can be, healing the wound and starting the recovery process. Pozar is jumped too quick, getting orders to track down Ronnie and Jason, who's now bombarded by soldiers in the hospital, but also Zither, who offers him a job like she did Ronnie, who has already seemed to accept. Mikhail is seen first in issue number 5, demonstrating to an Inspector Filipov that the country needs him by mercilessly killing another rogue Firestorm in Pozar form, and then states he's now heading to America. Over at Zither Tech in Nevada, which is said to be the world's leader in biotechnology, even though it's never mentioned in any other title, but whatever. Jason is having fury nightmares while Candace watches him sleep, creepy, and quotes Oppenheimer to Agent Carver. I always found what he thought of when witnessing the Trinity test most fascinating. Jason is invited to a meeting but gets into a fight with some guards instead and has to be stopped by his dad, who's been wooed by gifts and opportunities by Zither Tech. So much for all that integrity Jason's been prattling on about him. Candace then gives a BS speech about how she wants world peace, and Ronnie joins in, asking to talk with Jason, where it's said his mom has already fully bought into Zither Tech too. Now, I'm gonna shoot through the final to this issue since I got a few comments about it. The two boys agree to take down an apparent evil Firestorm in a music concert, but it's all apparently fake for positive media exposure for their Firestorms. However, after a brief fight, it ends up being a suicide mission by the evil Firestorm, resulting in a lot of deaths and Ronnie and Jason being right in the center of it. Firstly, how could they both have fallen for this so easily and naively? You both should have stopped trusting absolutely anyone as soon as you became a potential nuclear fallout on Lex. And then secondly, we've got the fact that no other superhero shows up to investigate this very scary explosion in the middle of the city. This should all at least warrant a visit from Stormwatch, if you know what I mean there. Another example of just too much happening across the New 52 with not enough continuity tying everything together. Issue number 6 opens with a fantastic double-page drawing as Ronnie and Jason try to come to grips with what just happened, and some disturbing facts about what's now in the air they're inhaling. Ronnie takes off, and after he definitely murders every fish in a nearby lake, Jason is able to catch up and kinda talk him down just in time for the arrival of Pozar. Another great battle scene is laid out with Pozar kicking both boys' asses and even shutting down Ronnie's powers at one point before questioning where the two got their Firestorm abilities due to sensing their pure forms, and once that's confirmed, he decides to spare them, thinking they could be useful later. We then get an encore fight scene starting in human form, but the boys switch back to Firestorms to kick the crap out of each other, slinging insults along the way, and Fury making an appearance very briskly, but disappears after Ronnie and Jason land in a junkyard, ultimately deciding to go their separate ways. Ronnie peels off immediately, leaving Jason to be contacted by Candace, telling him that the concert massacre has him wanted as a terrorist now, and to run like hell just as a huge battalion of soldiers show up to arrest him. Alright. Whatever tier group you put Firestorm into, it's hard to argue that when written well, like in this volume, he can belong with all the other top DC characters. It's really too bad the Injustice IP has given him the most respectable recognition recently since this title. But it may just be that with the power Firestorm could truly amass, he's just too difficult to include in some things. Even though Martin Stein being written to be one of the smartest people in the DC universe and not getting included in big crisis events is brutal. Back to a little more of the main topics though. The plot here is superbly written, dialogue included, which comes from a stellar cast. The early scene of Candace looking at people over the world accessing Firestorm protocols feels like even inspiration to The Boys Season 2 plot with terrorists and unsanctioned people gaining power from Compound V. And considering the comics to which that show is based on didn't have a storyline like that, it could be possible. The art here also is really gorgeous with popping colors, smooth design for the characters, facial features on point. What else do you need? Lastly, I want to mention this because I feel kind of bad for not being able to break down all the science involved due to not knowing enough without heavy research resulting in 10-minute explanations. But being an aspiring screenwriter, I've gone down enough rabbit holes while doing research in multiple fields, allowing me to know a little bit about a lot of things. One of them is learning that none other than Albert Einstein spent a good part of his life looking for something called the God equation, which obviously is called the God particle, aka Firestorm protocol here, which was discovered by Martin Stein, whose name I think was partly inspired by Einstein. And as long as I can mention these kinds of things to give the readers maybe a spark of interest into looking into things that are involved in the comics, that's awesome. Aside from all that though, I think I'm going to end things here, and I want to say thank you if you've watched to the end as always, and to please follow me on all my social media platforms. Please like, share, and subscribe, and to join me next time for Batwing Volume 1.